Hello, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Pablo Ibanez. I'm leading, this offshore sailing game, Realsail, founder of the game. And today I'm here with our colleague and also the leader of Realsail ranking, William Mertens, Bill Mertens, Boobill in Realsail. So, Bill, thank you very much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you here. I know that we have discussed about Realsail and you have helped lots of new skippers on enjoying the competition, enjoying racing, and so on. So it's a pleasure to have you here. And today, what I would like to discuss during this session is about lots of new skippers coming from the internet or from other sailing games. Sometimes they ask about how can they be competitive, how can they once they join a competition, once they join a race, what is the day-by-day basis, and also, the tasks they need to manage, during when they want to define the strategy, when they have to follow the strategy, execute it, and then try to be competitive and win other skippers during the race. So having Bill here, I think it's a pleasure to learn from him about his experience, which are the different tasks that he usually does during the day in order to be competitive in the races and win all those races, because he's the leader of the ranking. So Bill, thank you very much for joining us today, and please tell us about this experience, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, hi, Pablo. Good to see you again. So I got the feeling you wanted me to come on and kind of reveal the secret sauce. What's the secret to winning? What's the secret to doing well? And the reality is, there is no one single thing. Like I ask, why am I successful? And I think there's a lot of skills, a lot of things that you have to do well to be successful. And I think I'm good at all of them. I don't think I'm the best at any of them. But it's just the cumulative effect of kind of having the focus, having the attention, having some technical knowledge, understanding the mechanics of sailing, how polars work, how meteorology works, and then kind of applying it. Being focused. I mean, there's 4 weather updates in a 24-hour period. There's kind of some moaning right now. A lot of guys saying, "Well, I can't be at the game for all 4. This one's occurring in the middle of the night for me, or for me, it's my problem is some of them may occur in the middle of my workday. I mean, I can set an alarm and I can get up early in the morning to do a routing, which I do, because the 06 occurs at 4:40 a.m. for me. I have an alarm set for 4:35. I get up, I do my routing. It takes 5 minutes. I program my boat. I go back to bed. If I've got client meetings, I can't exactly go, hey, hold on a second, I got to program my boat. So I'm more likely to be late for a weather update during the workday than I am, kind of like the evening hours. But can you be successful, only attending 3 out of the 4 weather updates in a day? Most of the time, yes. But it's that odd one. Like if you're in an inshore race where the winds are fluky, from one weather update to the next might be a really dramatic change. And if you miss that, you've blown that race. But the other thing is just simply not making mistakes. One of my common errors is when I'm putting in a series of programs to control my boat overnight, I won't hit submit on the last one. And it all looks good on the screen, right? Because you put it in there and it shows on the screen, but you don't hit submit, and you you go away, you go to work, go to bed, or whatever, and it, well, you didn't hit submit, so it doesn't execute. And it's like, oh, okay, my boat's not where I wanted it to be. The other thing, you do have to use a router. I mean, the way I look at it, there's people who grumble and moan that, you're using a technology, a crutch. They want this just to be seat in your pants. I am, vehemently opposed to that. To me, the point of the game is to practice and become proficient with my navigation and routing tools. And the same ones that I use out on the real, on the water for real. I would not set out offshore without having these tools aboard. I mean, to do so would be irresponsible. I mean, so you got some guys who are really, like they're inland sailors, they're dinghy sailors, and they want the game to be what their real life experience is. But to me, this is, I want the game experience to be what I wish I was doing in real life.
Yeah, that's the main goal. I mean, so we build the Realsail in order to have it like a real experience. I mean, feeling like a real skipper sailing anywhere in the world, right? I mean, in the ocean. So try to feel the same experience while using the same tools. So I mean, the skippers, the virtual skippers can use Expedition, QTBLM, or any other routing tools in order to plan the strategy. So I mean, we try to make it as much real as possible. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and one of the cool things which you learn from the game from years of doing this, I mean, geography and global meteorology. You could name an area of the world, and I could go on talking for about a half an hour about weather systems, in that little tiny corner of the oceans. I mean, just having virtually, I've not been to any of these places in real life, but I've virtually sailed through them, many times, and you get to know the systems, and that's, I think, one of the elements of success is just experience. Hey, I've seen this before. I know how this weather system develops. I know how this weather system falls apart, or this one is never going to fall apart. Like, you're down in the Southern Ocean, low pressure systems don't back up. They don't, peter out and die. I mean, they're persistent, and how they behave.
Yeah, I agree. And on when you start the race, I mean, when you have to plan a race, there's a new race. Go, for example, a Transat race, cross the Atlantic Ocean, or maybe a Transpac race, cross the Pacific race from the East Coast or the West Coast to Hawaii. So what do you do? I mean, how do you plan the race? I mean, when you start the race, before they start the race, how do you manage this? I mean, and during the race, what are the main tasks that you usually do daily basis in order to be competitive and to win the race? Yeah.
Yeah, before a big race, I will, if I have the time, I'll start running routings a couple of days before the start and just follow through a couple of weather updates. Like if you're doing a Pacific crossing, there's usually going to be a northern route and a southern route. Do you go over the top of the North Pacific High, or do you go underneath it? Is there going to be a low pressure system, traipsing through the middle of that, which you can ride on? And that area is somewhat unstable. It's not like the Southern Ocean where it's, you can set your clock by the systems coming through. So just kind of getting an idea by doing some routings and, animating my route. So I know prior to the start, kind of what are we dealing with here? And, at what point are we going to have to make a decision? Like there was that one we did from China to, was it LA, I think. It was a big decision. How did you go around Japan? Now, you didn't have to make that decision at the start. You had to make it about 2 days in. but knowing when and where that decision point's going to be,
Yeah, got it. And what routing tools are you using, Bill? I mean, what are you using? The internal routing tool that we already have in the game, which is BitSailor, but are you also using other external tools like QTLM or Expedition or any others?
So my main routing tool is QTBLM. I will use I'll use the internal BitSailor router on occasion, particularly like sometimes if I'm traveling, I can't get to my computer, so I'm stuck working on my phone, and I'll use the internal BitSailor. I'll also use it sometimes. I'll import my QTBLM route, and then run the internal just to see how the rest of the fleet's going to go. Kind of like, okay. And I do have one secret. I mean, it's not a secret. I've been very open about how I do it, and a lot of people are emulating it now. But one of the powers of QTBLM is you can have different grids loaded, for different time periods, for different locations. And I kind of set mine up where I have, you have 3 grid slots. So the first one I have, kind of the current weather forecast up to when the game is going to cut over. Right now, the information is actually available for download about 2 hours before the game is going to apply it. Yeah, so you got to get that 2-hour head start. So I'm always try to kind of be at my computer, when that data becomes available, download it, and then put that in slot 2. So I have one grid up to the cutover, another one from the cutover for 24 hours. And then in slot 3, so the game runs on GFS, which is, the American weather forecast. Everybody knows the European one is way more accurate. In fact, you can start a conversation about an upcoming, I live in Florida, by the way, and you can start a conversation with any redneck at a gas station here about, some approaching storm. And the first thing he's like, you talking the American model or the European model? Like, everybody knows the European model is better. So I use the European model, ECMWF, for my long range routing.
And it fits also with the weather that you see in the Realsail. So it's similar to what we have on these European models with the Realsail grips.
Yeah. So Realsail is using GFS. So I do use GFS for the first 24 hours. Because ECMWF current conditions might be, the precision that's necessary for the game, even if it's off by 5 degrees, that's going to be problematic. But 24 hours out, and then what you're hoping or expecting is that the GFS, as we move forward in time, GFS is going to converge to ECMWF. That 5 days from now, GFS is going to be saying what ECMWF was saying 5 days ago.
I got it.
Yeah. So now, if they don't converge, and sometimes in the Southern Ocean, where you don't have, kind of high fidelity of the current conditions, the models may be, completely divergent, and they don't converge. In which case, you made a mistake following, like, what's the reality? Who knows? There's no one there, right? Like, there's no one at Point Nemo to tell you what the weather actually is, that we're sailing through virtually. So
I see.
You get caught by that once in a while.
Okay, and that would be the start before the race and during the race. And in the daily basis, so I mean, we have these 4 updates, for weather updates, at 0, 6, 12, and 6 p.m. Or 16, he said. So how do you manage this? I mean, you usually connect to the game before the update, and to plan the routing, because you mentioned that you already have the weather before 2 hours before the update. So how do you usually manage this? Yeah.
So my routine revolves around the weather updates. And when when the information becomes available, not when the game applies it. To me, that's almost immaterial. So for me, those occur at 4:40 in the morning, 10:40 in the morning, then 4:40 in the afternoon, and 10:40 in the evening. So like the last thing I do before I go to bed is download the weather at 10:40, run my routing, program my boat for the evening, and then I go to bed. Now the weather is going to switch from it would be the 18 Zulu forecast, in my evening, and at 1 o'clock in the morning, it's going to switch over to the 00 for the next day. But I don't need to be sitting in front of the game. I've programmed for that because my routing is kind of predicted what's going to happen. And if there's going to be a big wind shift, I know about it. And, I've programmed for it.
How do you usually follow the route that you have a plan? I mean, you use schedule waypoints, schedule commands, or do you use position waypoints? How do you usually follow the route that you have identified on the routing tool? Yeah.
It depends. Different tools, different programming works better in different situations.
Okay.
So if you have a VMG section, where you're going to be at your maximum VMG angle, either upwind or downwind, then you have to program a true wind angle, right? There's guys who, they are fixed waypoint people, and they always fixed waypoint, and they're obsessed by it. And as much as you try to tell them, it's like, look, the polars have ideal wind angles. There's modes that these boats sail in. You've got to hit those angles. Particularly when you're in VMG, upwind or downwind. If you're off even by a couple of degrees, that's going to make a huge impact. It's the same thing when you're sailing in for real. I mean, when you are close hauled, you are close hauled. 2 degrees above close haul, and your sails are flogging. So you need that, you need the precision of the true wind angle. If you're near shore, you need the precision of position.
Yeah.
Right. It's very important that I am in a specific place. Now, if you're close to shore and you need to VMG, that's where, that's going to require attention.
Yeah.
That's hard to program and go to bed. And, because you'll find yourself on the rocks when you get up.
Sure. And we also added 2 new capabilities in the game some months ago. There was the BMG, hot BMG, and BMC with a concrete destination. Are you using these new features that we already added to the game? So in order to match, follow a BMG when you want to follow a BMG, or hot BMG, which is a more deeper BMG, or the BMC is with a specific destination. Yeah.
I use them rarely. There's a situation where it's really useful, and that is, when you're getting a change in wind strength, and that changes your BMG angles.
Yeah.
So you can okay, I want to sail in that direction at my maximum downwind BMG.
Yeah.
For the next 6 hours, but that BMG angle is going to change from 145 degrees to 148 to 150 to 151 to 153 over that 6-hour period. We'll just hit the BMG button, and that's taken care of for you automatically. The hot BMG, I do sail hot BMG a lot, but I don't use the function.
Okay. So
I just program an angle that's like the Amokas, they're upwind at every wind strength. Their upwind BMG angle is 45 degrees. 48 is kind of a pimple on this on the polar.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of times where you want to be at 58, not 54.
Yeah. So. Got it. Okay, so that was I mean, it's interesting. I mean, to learn from you. I mean, in order to be competitive. I mean, so I mean, as you mentioned, so there is not a secret sauce. So you have to be also, you mentioned that you have to be persistent, regular, on your routine. Try to focus on the updates and try to be there. Also, you can use these tricks when you have the 2-hour period before the update in order to plan your strategy instead of being, in the update time. So yeah, any other tips to share with the audience, Bill, before closing the session?
Yeah, I mean, learn how to read your isobars in the router. It's like a topographical map, and just kind of understand it, and understand why the router wants to go this way. Is there another way to go? You can when you get experience with it, you can actually look at that isobar map and read it like you would a map, when you're out hiking, a topographical map, and go, oh, hey, there's another way to go. So there's 2 alternatives, and then, think about it.
Yeah.
It just, and that's the thing. I mean, last fall I was so busy at work, I did not have the time to kind of put the extra thought into it. I do my download, I do my programming. I was using the auto-generate waypoint just because, boom, 1 second and my programming is done, and then I can go back to work. That led to some poor results. If you don't have that little bit of extra time, and I'm not talking, I spend hours on every weather update, but if you can just spend, an extra 15 minutes, kind of understanding why the router wants to do what it wants to do, and is there another alternative?
Yeah, I was talking about this topic also with our partner Peter Eiler, this professional skipper. He has some courses on this weather interpretation and so on, and he told me about this. I mean, so interpreting the weather, interpreting the pressure, interpreting the winds forecast and so on is very, very important. When you want to plan a strategy and try to understand what is the routing doing, in the background, right? I mean, why is it taking this kind of decision? So you also have in this marine weather university that Peter Eiler founded, and they have lots of courses on this topic. So maybe, if you want to visit it, also is very interesting for sure. Yeah.
Believe it or not, I have that tab open on my computer, and I have for whatever the last 6 months or more since he introduced it. And yeah, it's on my to-do list.
Okay, Bill, thank you very much for your time today. It was a pleasure to talk to you again. It's a pleasure to have you also with sharing your experience and knowledge. So hopefully this session will be useful for many, many new skippers, and talk to you soon. Okay, thank you, Bill. Thank you.
All right.